Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Legal Tech Week, the show where we talk about the top news in the world of legal tech and innovation from the past week or two, in this case. Uh, Today is September 12th. I am Bob Ambrogi. I have the blog Law Sites and the podcast Law Next. And we're bringing a new regular onto the panel today that I'm very happy to welcome, Reese. Why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm hoping that everybody knows who I am, except I'm Reese Diepschen. I'm the editor-in-chief for Legal Tech News, and I've been in the industry since 2016. Joined LTN as a reporter, then became an editor, and then editor-in-chief. I've known almost everyone here since then, and it's awesome to be here talking to everybody again.
Well, we know you're big with former astronauts or something. Is that right?
Yes, apparently.
Some guy on LinkedIn is a big fan of yours. Uh, so he'll be hopefully he's in the audience here today. He'll be
Yeah.
excited. And some of our regular panelists who are here today. Stephanie, you want to kick it off?
Yes, Stephanie Wilkins. What am I now? See, Reese threw me off because I used to work with Reese and I almost forgot where I work now. Stephanie Wilkins, Director of Content at Legal Tech Hub. And it's great to see you again, Reese. Yes.
And Victor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Victor Lee. I am Assistant Managing Editor for the ABA Journal, focusing on business of law and technology.
And Steve.
Hi, Steve Embry. I publish the blog Tech Law Crossroads, and I write for Above the Law. And I guess I could say I've sort of been in the industry for, I don't want to say for how long. Maybe as long as Bob, sort of.
Yeah, but you've been in the like journalism industry for only
Yeah,
a much
that's
more
true.
much
I
more
was using
reasonable period
I
of
was
time.
using the word industry in a very broad sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So, Reese, normally with you being the newcomer to the panel, I would give you first dibs on talking about your stories, but I'm gonna bump you back a little bit only because I thought we should start with talking about Kaleidoscope because almost all of us were there last week. Victor, you weren't able to be there. But this was the inaugural conference put on by 8 a.m., the company formerly known as Affinipay, until what now, 3 weeks ago or so. And Of course, Nikki, who of course works at 8 a.m., but isn't able to be here today. Unfortunately, it'd be good to hear her perspective on it. I'm curious to hear what everybody thought about it. I thought it was pretty darn good. I thought they did a really good job with it. I can talk more about that. But why don't we kind of hear from you all who were there what you thought?
Yeah, I mean, I said it multiple times while I was there that if I didn't know, I wouldn't have guessed it was their first conference. I mean, for starters, having been inside a company that throws conferences, a lot of work goes into them. And, first ones, there can be glitches. And this one didn't even feel like a first one. I mean, they had, other than one, major typo in their branding that they very self-deprecatingly pointed out, which I thought was great. But I mean, from the music to the panels to everything, it really was impressive what they were able to do and really, in my mind, pull it off like they've been doing it for a while. So kudos to them on that.
Yeah, I felt the same way. It was sort of the standard has always been for being like a hospitable, well organized, well run conference was Clio. And of course, the 8 a.m. conference was nowhere near the size of Clio, but the same sort of feel about being there to help you and making sure you're having a good experience and giving you directions. And I mean, it was just flawless, I thought. The speakers were good, the panels were good, the way they did the speakers, they made sure they had people that really, other than myself, knew what they were talking about. And the keynote with Gabby Thomas
Thomas,
was
yeah.
interesting. I mean, it wasn't very legally related, but that's sort of the norm with conferences. And she had some good tips and hints for us mere mortals, I guess. But no, I thought it was a very well run conference. I was very impressed.
And they
Reese,
did
what
a
about
great
you? Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. And they did a great job of leaning into their new branding, I thought. Like they
Yeah.
really they sold it, they made it seamless, they made it everywhere, even if you didn't realize it was in your face. Like it was just there. And I thought that part was really good. Sorry,
The
didn't mean to talk over.
little alarm clocks on all the tables. It took me a while to catch that. They're all set at 8 a.m. I like that.
But even the floors in the elevator banks, even though it didn't say 8 a.m., there were squares with their colors. Like I mean, they picked that. It was like that subtle. It was just everywhere. I thought it was great. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, but that's what we're here for. You can interrupt all you want. Reese, what'd you think?
Oh, I didn't actually get to go, although I did like read your article on it.
Okay, why was I
And it
thinking
seemed
you were there? I'm totally, yeah.
pretty
I
fun.
thought you
Yeah,
I'm
were there
confused on
too.
my conferences.
yeah, we see each other at a ton of conferences, so I just always assume
I know it.
everybody's at every conference as well. Like I will say that, it's cool how there are like conferences now in like Austin. That's a relatively like new thing too. Clio like held a conference there, I think 2024, if I remember.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah, last
Yeah.
year. And I will say that, like it's fantastic just because I'm closer obviously right now. Except they don't always have to do Texas barbecue all the time. I think, like just changing it up sometimes could be helpful. Stephanie knows I'm like all into critiques about conference cuisine and food.
He is like the
So
most food driven. Like if you want, that should be your beat actually. Not
yeah, just
that should be a
conference
side
Legal
beat.
food.
tech
Is like
food.
Yeah, legal
reviewing
tech food.
conference food. Yes,
I mean,
I
there's,
actually talked about it in my review of the conference only because I'm a pescatarian. I don't eat meat, and it was a pretty meat heavy cuisine at the conference, and that was what was my only complaint because I feel like even in Texas, not everybody eats meat all the time,
but then there
and
were randomly like trays of donuts. Then there was like cookies and milk day. Like I actually thought of you, Reese. I'm like Reese would really approve of this.
I
And the
appreciate it.
cookies were really good too.
Yeah.
right. They were good. But again, if you're like kind of trying to be healthy, like I think some of the other conferences have gotten good at is more like I complained one year about Clio with this actually, and I years ago, and I know they started mixing up their cuisine with a better mix of health food as well as junk food as their snack food. But Steve, I was glad you said that about Clio because my whole review I wrote about this is like deja vu all over again. But I really felt like they had very similar vibe to the first Clio Con. I think I was saying before we started recording, my wife said to me, like, why are you talking about Clio in your review of 8 a.m.? They must not be too happy about that. And I said it's just, Clio has become kind of the standard of what a really good conference is like. And, as somebody who was at that first ClioCon, I've always remembered that with great fondness as really one of the most memorable and best conferences I was at. And even as it's grown, they've been able to continue to do that. And I thought really, the hallmark of the Kaleidoscope was that they captured a very similar vibe. And it was, that as I kind of said in my own review, that it's not necessary. At the end, it doesn't come down to the food or the venue or everything else. It's really kind of more the vibe of the conference. And so, in my mind, sort of comparing them to CleoCon was a compliment. They may not have seen it that way. I don't know, but
But it was
yeah.
I think it was a good comparison because I mean I wasn't at the first CleoCon, but the first CleoCon was not the thousands of people they have now. And I thought they
Right,
started at a rational size. They didn't
pretty
try
much
to
the same size. Yeah,
they didn't try to throw a blowout on out of the box. The one thing though, Reese, sorry to disappoint you, it's not in Austin next year. I
I
think that's
know.
one thing. Like it ended, we were all like, "Yay, fun, hometown vibes," and then they were like, "Womp womp." It's in Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty cool. I haven't been to Vegas in ages.
Oh,
I believe
and
they
the
actually changed Clock, right? Clock used to be in Vegas and they
Yeah, I used to be
finally
in Vegas
changed
all the
the site.
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be in Chicago. But Victor, your head roll with my whole soul about going back to Vegas. So
No. Vegas is one of my least favorite places,
same.
Yeah.
but hey, they need the tourism, so I guess maybe they made it worth their while to be there. I mean, from what I've read, they got decimated this last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not a big Vegas fan, and I don't like going to legal tech conferences. And I think the other point, I think some of us talked about this last week, is that if 8 a.m.'s goal is to kind of build momentum for this conference year after year. I mean, there's one argument to be made that Vegas is a great venue for that, but the other argument, I forget, Stephanie might have been you, said the problem with Vegas for a conference is that the people who come to the conference don't go to the conference. They go do Vegas things and they go wander off. And again, if you really want to kind of build involvement and participation in a conference, Vegas may not be the best place to do it.
Yeah, I
And
don't
that's the
think I
case with a
said
lot
that,
of
but I did.
conferences, though. I mean, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say I didn't say that, but I have heard that. Go ahead, Victor.
No, but that's the case with a lot of conferences, though. I mean, you always see like a decline in attendance, like as the days go on. Like especially, I mean, with tech show, it's like everyone's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed on Thursday, and then Friday you start to see a little bit of more empty spaces in the conference rooms. And on Saturday, it's like you're lucky if you get like half full at that point.
Yeah.
One thing I did hear tangentially at Clock though about attendance is that as companies are clamping down a little bit on T&E expenses, they're getting some people are having a hard time getting approval for Vegas because the companies see it as, sure, you're going on a work trip, but you're really going on a party
Right.
trip to Vegas where they don't necessarily see other cities the same way. I don't know if that's true, but I heard that anecdotally more than once.
It's actually interesting
Mhm.
because Vegas is like cheaper to fly to and get in a hotel at than the majority of other conference like areas, cities I've been to as well. And like I can say that I haven't, like I've been to conferences in Vegas and they're always in the summertime, so you don't ever want to go outside on the strip. And that's basically how they keep you inside the hotel, essentially.
In fairness, it was literally 100 degrees in Austin while we were there. So
Sounds about right.
yeah.
Yep.
It was a tad humid too.
It was. We did sort of a variation on our show there. Nikki served as moderator of it, but we had Steve and Joe and Stephanie and myself and Nikki do a panel there that I just put the link in the chat for. It's posted up on YouTube. We filmed it with our iPhone, so it's not the greatest quality, but it came out pretty good in terms of recording it. So that was our show last week. We didn't do a show last week, but we did that instead. So yeah, so let's see if we'll see if they invite me back next year. But I'm looking forward to seeing how it grows and expands next year. Um, so Reese, Reese is also now disadvantaged by the fact that he thought the rule of the show was that you couldn't submit your own stories to talk about. So he picked a couple of other stories that were not his own to talk about, but they are united by a common theme. So
And
Reese, you
I
want to tell us a
actually
little? Yeah.
cheat, I guess, and talk about Stephen's story because that story is super interesting, and that happened just 2 days ago. If it's okay.
Reese, you can do that, but then I'll have nothing to talk about. So go ahead.
Well, I'll
But
Well,
that's
you can
okay.
talk about Reese's story.
tee it up
Well,
and
we all
then
just throw each
I'll
other for a
pass it
loop.
on
It's
to
cool.
you.
And actually,
Um,
Steve and Stephanie's story is kind of related.
Well, mine and
yeah,
Nikki, who's not here, our stories were related. So yeah.
So we're all
you know,
related. What a great
We're
deal.
all related. It's like the Kevin Bacon of stories or whatever.
it seems to be a growing trend in the field too about like how like legal tech companies are essentially trying to get into the law firm
Oh,
space, and like in the UK, that startup Lawhive
yeah.
just like outright purchased and acquired a law firm, as they can do in that country because they don't have the restrictions around who can own law firms or practice law to the extent that we have here, obviously. And we've seen that over the past few weeks here in the States too, with like I think Udia essentially opening a like ABS firm in Arizona. And we saw like LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer essentially do the same too. And I had a really good chat with the head of the ABS Rocket lawyer firm, where he essentially explained the entire structure too, and like how the firm essentially relied on secondments to be able to be like a US law firm as opposed to just kind of, focus on Arizona too. So it's interesting, like the hoops that legal tech companies have to jump through here, and the like added stresses, of like trying to ensure they are complying with all the regulations. And then in the UK, a fairly new like legal tech startup. I mean, it was only like, 2019, I believe it launched. Just outright, like outright acquires a law firm, and that is, it's just like such a huge culture clash. I mean, I recall like talking to a UK ASLP, like what I would define as an ASLP, and they're like calling themselves a law firm. And it was like we were speaking two different languages, because in the UK, a law firm can be anything essentially. Can be like can be essentially what we would call an AS, like ALSP here. Um, and it's kind of like we aren't even speaking the same language across the pond, because of how we restrict law firms, from well, how we restrict law firm ownership as well. But that's the attempt I had to kind of tee it off for Stephen, because it was his story. So I'm happy to pass it off to him if he wants to.
No, it was
I was
it was
wrong. I thought Nikki posted that. Steve posted that too. And
Yeah.
that leads into mine.
I didn't write the story. It was in something called Legal Cheek. I'm not really
yeah.
sure what that is.
That's kind
It's
of
a
like
but
it's kind of like it's one of the things in the UK that's above the law-ish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cheeky, I think it
okay.
refers to. Yeah.
Cheeky, yeah. But the thing that struck me about it is it looked like from the article that Lawhive is very heavily into its artificial intelligence tool, which they call Lawrence, not
That's a
Harvey, but
brilliant name, by the
Lawrence.
way. I gotta say that, like, who,
Yeah.
how do we all miss that one? Law is in the it's in the
Lawrence,
name.
yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of, I mean, the firm they acquired, Woodstock Legal Services, does a lot of like property, real estate kind of work. And the Lawhive AI assistant Lawrence is touted to be uh, able to do a lot of that kind of work with documents and drafting and all of that. And it just struck me as kind of like, so now you have a law firm owned by an artificial intelligence company, or a company that has a sophisticated tool. So what does that mean? If you're looking at maximizing profits, if you're the owner of the company, one way to maximize profits is to do more things with artificial intelligence at less cost. And you still have all the dangers of hallucinations and inaccuracies, even though it may be a RAG based tool. I don't know, but it just struck me as a lot of implications that could go could come from that as it develops. And so it'd be interesting to see what they do with it. I saw that Lawheim is backed by Google, which also is kind of a very interesting twist to the whole thing. Um, so I don't know. I guess we won't have to worry about that too much in the United States for some time, unless you're in Arizona, I suppose. I can't remember the other state, but that would be a
I believe.
different twist on it. Yeah, Nevada, yeah, different twist on the whole question of whether that's a good thing, where you have AI tools acquiring law firms, so to speak. I know that's not exactly what happened, but it's
Um,
going to
Also, I
be
mean,
phrased that way.
but correct
I
me if I'm
find it
wrong. In the
interesting.
UK, like law firms are heavily regulated by a central governmental entity. I think, right? There's an agency.
SRA, what I forget what it
Yeah,
stands
Yeah.
for, but it's SRA.
Something.
solicitors, yeah,
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. So I mean, so it is different in a sense. I mean, like, so I guess that's one way they can kind of guard against people being like, oh well, there's a consumer protection issue, and there's we got to protect, we got to make lawyers live up to legal ethics and not chasing profits all the time and blah blah blah. Like that's a way they can guard against that. Whereas here, obviously, that's not I mean, Arizona notwithstanding, that's not where we're headed, at least not anytime soon.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but
it's definitely interesting though, because I mean, like,
I guess what I
I
was
mean,
kind of
I don't
looking,
know much about this firm, but like, yeah,
what I was,
if they're like a real estate firm, I would think that that'd be a lot of like templated work and a lot of like contracts, a lot of
right.
forms, a lot of stuff. So that'd be right up their alley for an AI
Yeah,
company.
and I mean, I could just see, the Wallhave companies sort of like, let's have our artificial intelligence tool do more and more and more, and the lawyers who cost or are a cost drag do less and less, and yet hold itself out as a law firm when really the artificial intelligence tools are doing more and more with all the incumbent risks and all of that. I mean, it struck me as I think I put in the um in the share file, what could possibly go wrong? I mean, I see maybe several things could possibly go wrong with this, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. Stephanie, you want to talk about your story? Well, it wasn't your
Yeah,
story, but the Cub
yeah.
story.
Sam on our team wrote it, but I picked it because it was part of this bigger thing that Reach touched on in the beginning. Is this? It seems to be this growing trend of different flavors of AI law firm, whatever you want to call it. Um, the Law Hive thing is a little interesting because it was already sort of a hybrid ALSP legal tech company, and then it bought a law firm. But it then a couple days before, just the day before, UDIA, or maybe it was the week before, UDIA had come out saying that they got ABS approval in Arizona to function as a law firm, and they're starting with M&A activity. But like by my count, that's at least five. If you count all of those in this AI trend, that's at least five. I had kind of forgotten LegalZoom, that's six. Um, Back in May, one of the stories I picked was the first AI law firm, which was Garfield, also in the UK, that the SRA approved. And then there was a Covenant and Crosby in July. And it's this whole, so it seems to be this new trend, and I have not quite yet decided where I land on it. A lot of it is, like you said, if it's very discreet, easy work, it kind of makes sense. I mean, Crosby is doing, or Garfield is doing like consumer debt collection kind of stuff. Um, or things that are really, and like if people are doing NDA work, which I think Crosby is doing, or Covenant is really focused on fund formation work, which is a little bit more complex, but really, really still niche. I think there's more of a use for it. And if it's the kind of thing where it is more consumer help, I'm always all for that. I don't see any of this yet as an actual threat to like any big law or even mid-law law firm structure things. I think it's interesting. I'm curious to see how much of it is to sort of be like, hey, we're first, and how much of it actually pans out into an actual market disruptor in any way. So reserving judgment on that, but it's definitely a new thing, a new trend sort of spotting. I don't know.
When I was
Rawhide
reading
is
the,
actually,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Rawhide is actually interesting because they own a like attorney marketplace.
Mhm.
So like I assume like they're that they're just gonna like add those attorneys to their attorney marketplace, have some in-house attorneys to help out. It seems that these law firms, to Stephanie's point, like are just doing like B2C. It can be, and like I'm just playing the devil's advocate here too, like a good access to justice trend, because if the focus is on consumers, and if you do use AI and have an attorney marketplace, essentially you're trying to make it, legal services cheaper and way more accessible too. And like what Garfield and like Lawhive seem to be doing, it kind of is akin to like your legal Zooms, although legal Zoom, you know, has had to jump through hoops to do what they do, as did Rocket Lawyer too. In the UK, like it's fairly easy and simple to do, and like I would be surprised if like we don't see a quick growth in these types of like B2C kind of like hybrid law firm ASLPs, whatever you want to call them, like the new like consumer like AI legal companies essentially.
Yeah,
Well,
and I went back
that's
and
what
took a
that
look at,
you
but
could
oh, I went
go
back
ahead.
and took a look at my response to Garfield when because I couldn't remember because May seems like so long ago. And I was like, it's not this earth-shattering thing that everyone said, but it's also not nothing if it actually helps consumers do stuff, was sort of my takeaway. But go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say the UDIA one is a little bit different than what research was talking about. And so far, although ALSP might be, it almost sounds like an ALSP in a sense. I mean, they really seem to be focusing more on the corporate sector and on doing M&A and contracts and that sort of thing. Julie.
Julie, right on Julie time.
It's true.
It's
Julie
is
time.
it? It must be 3 o'clock somewhere. Um,
Or 3:30 Newfoundland.
or 3:30.
You just never know.
Or 8 a.m. if you're the legal tech company. Welcome. So we're just talking about a couple of stories about legal tech companies buying law firms, basically law practices, in a couple of different examples recently. One in the UK and then this one in Arizona with this company UDIA. And what I was going to say before I lost my train of thought was so Steve's point back a few minutes ago where he said, what could go wrong? It's interesting with reading the UDIA one because there's the article is fascinating that you guys published on Legal Tech Hub, but there's this, they talk about this idea of being the company brain and kind of taking in all the company's documents and then being able to kind of use that as a knowledge base for generating future work product and new work product. And I was thinking, like, really, what's the difference there between, from what like Harvey's doing now, or what some of the other major AI platforms are doing now? The only difference is the ownership model, but the output or the way they're even generating the output sounds very similar to me. I mean, Harvey's going in and, embedding itself in a law firm or a legal department and kind of building this this knowledge base based on the law firm's documents and its own language model beyond that. But so in terms of what could go wrong, I mean, I don't know if it's any more prone to something going wrong than any of these other kinds of approaches to incorporating internal knowledge with external language models or something.
Yeah, when I
That's
say what
not
could
what-
possibly go wrong, I was focusing more on the ownership angle than the tool itself. I'm sure the tool itself
Yeah.
is, like most of them.
Yeah.
When we talk about these ownership things, I don't think this is what anyone really had in mind when they talked about these, these ownership structures. Like we were thinking like, oh, you can have non-lawyers at the top. Like you can have like the KPMG US LLP or whatever the name of it is. Like that's kind of what we expected. I don't think we were really expecting to see like a legal tech company now becomes a law firm, which is more of what we're seeing now. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out because yeah, exactly. Like other people have said, like, so does Harvey become a law firm now? Does Lagora become a law firm now?
Yeah.
Harvey and Lawrence.
Yeah.
At least we've gotten away from all the female names for AI. We're starting to get some male names.
Yeah, actually, you know what? That actually is a good point. I do like that trend. I do like that trend. Someone should write about that.
I think they do the SNL thing called Pat, and be like, is it a man? Is it a woman?
I was just thinking gender neutral law firm names. There's got to be a better headline for that. I I don't know. I kind of feel like this is a mark of maturity of marketplace that we are now worried about venture capitalists and others owning law firms just as they own other things in other industries. And I mean, both UK and Australia have had this for what, decades now, about others owning things
Yeah.
more or less. So I mean, I know in the chat people were saying someone was saying a lot could go wrong. A lot goes wrong right now anyway, to be really frank with you. So I'm
Fair
not
point.
really I'm not really like if we're gonna talk about business structures and law firms, like there's just going to be a time where someone walks into a business and walks in digitally or virtually or in person, and the place will be like, yeah, we also provide legal services like a law firm, but they won't call themselves a law firm. Again, this is not revolutionary. We already know law firms that operate like this. So I don't know, shrug shoulders about this. I'm not think this is good.
The ownership angle, though, could be something that is concerning because private equity is trying to get into law firms. I mean, like, there was a story that law.com did in like August about preferred capital, like hoping to invest in law firms, and they eventually just invested in like a company that provides essentially back office like support to law firms, if I recall right. Um, and a ton of these tech companies obviously owned by private equity. So it's, you know, is it helpful? Is it healthy to get private equity in the legal space? Do we have any examples of like the impact of that in the UK and Australia? I mean, if the lines blur between legal tech and law firm, that has a ton of advantages, I think. Although, you know, the ownership question is always really curious because like somebody owns it, and if they want to profit, like, how does that, impact everything at the end of the day? Although law firms, they want profit themselves, so I don't really know what impact that will have. Although the private equity ownership angle is something that I think hasn't been thought through, and probably we don't know what that's going to be like until we actually see it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we see, that you have to
Mhm.
think back a lot of times when the private equity firms do get involved in purchasing, say, legal tech companies, you see decline in service, decline in hands-on support, and all those kinds of things to cut costs to make up the difference in the purchase price. And what concerned, I guess the thing that hit me with it's not exactly like a private equity firm. It is a firm that has a very sophisticated artificial intelligence tool at a time when we are constantly worried about how artificial intelligence tools make mistakes, particularly hallucinations and inaccuracies. And if, in order to recover the purchase price, Walhouse exerts a lot of pressure on the lawyers in the firm to use the tool and and not take all the steps, all the more costly steps that need to be taken to protect clients. That's kind of where I could see this perhaps going off the rail a little bit. The pressure to do everything with artificial intelligence, reduce the staff, reduce the lawyers that actually work, and yet hold the entity out as a law firm that represents clients, advises clients, suggesting that it's the lawyers doing the advising when it may in fact be an artificial intelligence tool, which may not be bad because that may give better advice, but it's the question of that kind of pressure and the perception of the public with to the extent, what are they buying? What do they think they're buying? So that's kind of where I see the sort of problems that could develop.
Couldn't the same thing happen in any law firm though? I mean, we're spending mega bucks on Harvey, and darn it, we want you folks out there using it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but Harvey's not buying the law firm.
No, but I mean the pressure to
Yeah.
use the AI, that side of it, that part of it, whether it's because of the fact that the company owns the AI or whether it's simply because they invest in a whole lot of money in it, it's six of one, half a dozen of the other in a way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, because there's definitely been talk about like once you pick any product in any place, like old school CLM, like once you're in it, it's so hard to admit you made the mistake and extract and pick another one. So you just keep doubling down and digging in your heels, and you're like, you will use it and you will like it.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, if you own the law firm, then it's not, you don't even have the option of of removing it because you don't like it. And it's now they own you. So do what I say, or
Was
you're gone.
Yeah, and I think to address some of the things, like the issues that people are bringing up, I totally agree they exist, but again, I'm not sure where this is in the US, but I know in Canada, regulation of law firms is already being done in various provinces. So this issue of who actually owns the law firm doesn't matter. As long as you own it, you're still under the same regulatory requirements, and in some cases even more so than individual lawyers. So that's a whole other, like in terms of like consumer protection and some of the other things you brought up, in some jurisdictions here, that's already been solved. So because I mean, you look at the retail market and private equity, that's a wonderful case study of how private equity firms can destroy everything from consumer satisfaction to profitability. So, you know, I think those are all real, but I do actually think there's like regulatory solutions to this. And I really think it's more so about the like the actual client service. Like you were saying, Bob, I just don't actually think there's a difference in terms of like on the ground risk that already exists, whether it's an individual lawyer or lawyers running a law firm and, you know, someone else owning it.
Just seeing Bob's post on the chat and shitification. You know, it's interesting
Steve's favorite word.
Yes, it
in
is.
Lawhive's case because they're using the cash that they got from private equity, Google Ventures, and they had two funding rounds, I believe, in 2024, like huge funding rounds. I mean, you know, pretty large and pretty quick, you know, consecutive funding rounds too. So the private equity funders, you know, like definitely want to see a return, and that ties into Steve's issue. I mean, Stephen's issue of like, you know, like how are they going to get that return? Are they going to really comply with everything that you should have to comply with? I mean, here in the states, like you know, the legal regulations are there in theory to protect you know to protect the consumers of legal services, and to keep everything like ethical and above the board too. In practice, everybody has an opinion on how effective they are, but I think to Julie's point, perhaps it just comes down to like, you know, how effective is your regulation and your jurisdiction? Because you definitely like want to allow innovation in the space, although you don't want it to just be like, you know, squeezing companies out for profit like they did in the retail space, where it's just, you know, you go in, you squeeze them, and then you get out essentially, and everybody's left worse off except for the owners.
Right. And shitification.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I
if
think
any,
that would be Corey's classic definition.
if any U.S. lawyers decide to head over to the U.K. to check out Lawhive, they better be careful on the way back into the country, according to a story Victor has this week. I spent a lot of time trying to think of a transition there.
It works.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah, I mean, this is just another one of those cautionary tales for people, especially if they're going out of the country. You know, there was basically, you know, we did a story that ran this week. You know, searches of electronic devices, especially phones, is up 16%, I think, since 16.7%, just from that period between April and June of this year. And so, you know, I mean, they don't have stats here for the last few months, but I assume it's probably going to be something similar, you know, going forward, you know, pretty much. And I mean, lawyers should probably count on that, and that's what the rest of the story deals with, especially because you know several law firms were specifically targeted by executive orders from the Trump administration, and you know lawyers just have access to just so much, you know, confidential information and you know and important information and whatnot. So it's just ways that like they can you know safeguard just be aware that their devices are probably going to be searched, and in which case then they have an ethical obligation to safeguard whatever private confidential data that they have, information that they have, and then you know obviously you know the hope is that this doesn't continue, but you should probably count on it continuing for at least the rest of this administration.
So they have
What
an
do you do?
obligation. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, what do you do about that? I mean, what does a lawyer do to in the anticipation of that possibility?
Well, because I mean, we were looking because you know my wife and I, our family, we were thinking about taking a trip to Canada actually over the summer, and we decided not to go because not because we didn't want to have you know the U.S. border people search our stuff, but we just didn't want to have run into any problems. Also, it's just one of those things where it's like, one thing that I think was recommended to us was that you have a burner device that's not your typical, that's not your usual phone, or your not your usual mobile device. When you're abroad, use like VPNs and like other types of virtual machines so that you're not directly connecting onto things, and maybe and whatnot, and just a little bit more of a safeguard and whatnot. But just use your common sense and like and know that like your stuff is probably going to be searched when you go through the border, so don't be surprised, and then take whatever precautions that you can.
Yeah, I just posted in the chat from the Law Society of BC, basically what you just said with a little bit more detail. So I've had the scary pleasure to to be a part of a briefing for journalists in Canada about this earlier this year. And there has already been lots of articles here in Canada about this, but basically, yes, either have a secondary device or wipe your burners or wipe your phones, that sort of thing. I was trying to find the article of a lawyer, I think, that got caught in this crossing from Canada to the US. I couldn't find it, but yeah, this is already our reality here in Canada since April, or sorry, since earlier this year. So I won't give away all my secrets here, but yeah, I do have multiple phones, and people who know me know I have multiple phones and multiple numbers and multiple ways to contact me. But yeah, I think now for US attorneys, yeah, they do need to take this seriously. And actually, if we really think about it, this has been an ongoing issue even before the new US administration, even just like regular tech safety and phones, right?
Yeah.
We've all written those articles about smartphones getting hacked and cloud-based software and all this kind of thing. So I think this is a great like time, if whatever firm you're in, to be like, hey, yeah, let's review our electronic device policies and all those good things. And do we need to do some CLE again? Like I think it's all a good time to do that.
Are you actually a secret agent, Julie? Is that why you have all these burner phones?
Can neither confirm nor deny those.
Well,
I
just
did that
even
one.
in the good old days of like 2010 or whatever, when I traveled to China, to visit family, there were like I was told, I know in certain terms, like you can expect your device will probably be cloned at some point, just by someone in China who just knows how to do this stuff. So yeah, I mean, just it's probably a good idea just anytime you go abroad, especially that you should, if you're a lawyer and you have this kind of information, that you should probably be careful and take precautions. Is even without more onerous uh, border policies in place. But and also, I think another thing that this has proven or shown us is that like look, border crosser, people at the border, immigration officials, whatever, they have a lot of discretion to do pretty much almost whatever they want. And if there's a right administration in place, and if there's a right, law enforcement people in place, and they can pretty much get away with anything. So you can never assume that, oh well, the rule of law is going to protect me, or this law or this policy is going to protect me. If it can always just go away just like that.
I know that I've gone to Russia twice, and the first time I did bring a burner phone. The second time I brought my iPhone, but I never once turned on cellular. So I wasn't worried about like getting searched at the border so much as I was worried about somebody, basically hacking into us. I just never used cellular service. I only used a VPN, and I was able to get a VPN that apparently was illegal in Russia, but somehow I was able to use it there, and connect in that way. Whether I was cautious enough, I don't know. But fortunately, I don't have too many top secrets on my phone, so I think I was okay.
You actually did have like have an obligation to protect the info they access. If it's an attorney, you can have like crazy confidential info, people's healthcare files, like stuff that is, regulated by a host of, state and federal privacy laws. Does any of that apply here, or it's just like they have to take precautions, and whatever precautions they take is whatever precautions they take?
Yeah.
Yeah, could you imagine having an immigration lawyer try to cross now? I mean, all the information they could have.
All right.
I
Well, it wouldn't
actually,
be Friday if we didn't have another story about lawyers hallucinating cases. Actually, I got a couple of stories this week, but I think I was going to talk about one of them where the judge had a sort of an interesting response or interesting way of addressing it. This was a case out of Nevada where I think we might have actually talked about this case before. Um, where a couple of lawyers, Cozen O'Connor lawyers, had filed a brief that had a number of hallucinated citations contained within it. And last week, the judge had I guess basically a show cause hearing or a hearing on whether to impose sanctions. And the judge, I don't think he actually issued a written order, but this was reported by the Reno Gazette Journal, and then I picked it up on my blog. But uh, the judge decided that he would impose sanctions, and the sanctions would be a fine of $2,500 for each lawyer, I think, and then that they would each be removed as counsel for the party in the case, and some other, oh, they're going to get reported to the bar. So not all that serious of sanctions in the first place. But as soon as the judge said that, he then basically gave them an out. He said that he would um, not impose those sanctions if they would agree to take certain action to educate the bar about how they had screwed up and what they had done wrong and how not to do that. Teach other lawyers how not to do that. So specifically, he said that I will, will withhold enforcement of the sanctions if you agree to notify the state bar what you did, and then make yourself, quote, make yourselves available as a resource or mentor to a committee that analyzes AI policies, volunteer to speak at continuing education classes on the topic, and maybe write an article for a legal publication about their mistakes and lessons learned, and also send a letter to their law schools offering to be guest lecturers at ethics courses on professional conduct and their use of AI. So I thought it was kind of an interesting way of approaching it, since we talk so much here about, there just needs to be greater education around these issues. It's just, there's just been a deluge of these cases, and they just keep happening. And for all our talking about them, for all our writing about them, it just seems to be, the message doesn't seem to be getting through. So I thought that was an interesting approach.
Maybe we should form a business like, so if you get a ticket for reckless driving or speeding or something like that, they send you to like driver's education course in lieu of going to jail. So we could like form a hallucination education course. And the judges can send all their people here to us, and we'll yell at them for a couple hours.
Lesson one, don't do it. Lesson two, why to do it. Stop
And we
doing it.
will still
Lesson three, don't
charge.
do it again.
That's right. And we'll charge them 2 hours for that. And we'll get a private equity firm to back us.
There
So
you
let's
go.
get that Series A funding going. I did, yeah,
Pretty good.
I see.
I hereby sentence you to watching Legal Tech Week for 4 weeks in a row. No, not that, Judge. Anything but that.
I'll pay the $2,500.
Yeah.
I'm actually
Yeah.
curious too to like the extent this is an issue with like the education of attorneys. I mean, like attorneys have to know that AI tools hallucinate. Like, it's been happening for ages now. Like
You would think.
I would hope essentially. You know, is it a education problem or is it a problem of like they just don't have the time and they're just like whatever, like we'll just quickly do it or something. Like they're just like under so much stress and they just don't have time because of it. Like if it was an education thing at some point, like how long have we been talking about this? It feels like forever, and I'm like, why isn't this clicking or changing anything to some extent?
I don't
Yes,
have any
it's a
sympathy
little
for
bit.
the.
It's a little bit
Yeah.
like password. I mean, everybody knows you're supposed to have a really sound password, but I mean, how many people still use 1, 2, 3, 4 and stuff like that? I mean, but actually written a kind of a piece on that recently. It's sort of the same notion as I don't think it's an education issue as much anymore. Is that just people are stressed, they're overworked, and they're lazy, and they don't check, and they're just say, "Oh, it's probably okay. I won't worry about it. I won't get
Well, the
caught
time
anyway."
issue, like, because the whole point is supposed to give you more time. It's supposed to go give you your time back. Like the whole point of AI was that, oh, well, if you're overworked, or you have too much stuff on your plate, use AI and you get those hours back. So, well, then you got to use those hours somehow. I mean, you got to do something with it. So, I mean, if you're supposed to give you your time back, then what are you using it for then?
This is
I
probably our most common recurring rant, Reese, just FYI. Yes.
I know. I'm so
Okay.
tired about writing about hallucinations. I'm
Mhm.
like, what career change can I make as a journalist that I don't have to, that I can still write about tech, but not AI hallucinations. I, I know we're talking about time and everything. I agree with you. It's not an education issue. This is a people issue. This is a competency issue. Like you have to check your work. You have to check your work. And the part of me is like, would they be checking their work even if AI wasn't there? And I know that's a terribly cynical question, but it happens. And so,
Well,
like, they know about AI, they know about hallucinations. Even the legal tech companies are talking about hallucinations. We've talked about this last, because Nessus is talking about hallucinations. Harvey's talking about hallucinations. All of them are talking about this. So I really think it's something deeper than that. I don't know what it is. If I knew, then I'd be a consultant and be making a lot more money. But
This has
it's
been
not.
happening for generations in different forms, in a
yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
It was the lawyers who, 20 years ago would have picked a treatise off a shelf and copied and pasted or retyped, they wouldn't have even copy pasted, whatever, a sentence out of that treatise saying this case stands for this without ever reading the case. I mean, that's been happening for a long time, unfortunately. The problem here, is that at least those were real cases in the treatise. So now we're just getting completely made up stuff. I do think though education is still part of it. There was another case this week. I haven't had a chance to write about it yet. I don't know if anybody else has, but out of Connecticut, I know Law 360 I think had a thing on it, but where the judge hasn't imposed sanctions yet, but the point of the story was he discovered it and he feels he really needs to impose some really strong sanctions because everybody keeps doing that. And he thinks the only way to get lawyers' attention is to really start imposing harsh sanctions. But that was a case where like the lawyer at issue was in a practice with his daughter, I think. It was also a lawyer, and the daughter said, "Oh, you ought to try this AI legal research thing," and the lawyer just didn't, pleaded like I didn't know better. I just tried it and used it, and this is what it created, and I filed it. He just kind of put blind faith into what he did. So I mean, yeah, that's partly a competence issue, and it's partly an education issue. It's both of those things.
It is, and it depends. Yeah.
The other thing about it is we talk a lot about the hallucinations, which may just be the tip of the iceberg because the case doesn't exist. I suspect there's a lot more inaccuracies, cases cited for propositions that are incorrect, or a dissenting opinion cited as a majority opinion that aren't getting caught, but are if this many hallucinations are occurring, I shudder to think how many inaccuracies are occurring that
Oh,
nobody's just
absolutely.
catching. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Absolutely.
point.
There are like legal tech tools now that try to create essentially safeguards to ensure that like hallucinations won't happen, and you're forcing the user to kind of check stuff. Like the new research updates by Lexis and Thompson too are like honing in on, we understand hallucinations are an issue. Like these are the essential safety checks we're trying to implement to prevent that from happening. I I had a question. Are the majority of the cases because somebody has turned to Chat GPT as opposed to a legal specific Gen AI tool? And the ones I have seen, the majority are, ChatGPT. Except I haven't, I've only seen a sliver of the probably hundreds of cases that have come out now.
There are hundreds. I think in the beginning it was all ChatGPT. You are seeing some of it with the legal tech tools, but yeah.
Yeah, that's every time I've asked that question, they've all sort of like shrugged. There's not very many. Maybe ever occasionally. Don't worry about
Well, I mean, we've seen, I don't know about the cases, but we have certainly seen from some of the benchmarking reports that have come out so far. I mean, look at the Stanford study a year
Yeah.
ago now, a year and a half ago, whatever that was. I mean, that found that both, that found that all the major platforms were hallucinating to some extent. The legal research platforms were hallucinating to some extent.
I mean, it's what AI
Yeah.
does.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whether lawyers are relying on them more, I don't know.
Yeah.
trying so hard to please you that it'll make shit up. I mean,
It's essentially it.
it's like my grandkids, when they get into trouble, Just make stuff up. Just make it up.
Yeah.
just trying to keep you on the platform too. So it's like I have an answer for everything, and I'm your friend, and you can trust me with everything. I mean, I don't even know why I do this. It's so stupid. I will spend time trying to explain stuff to ChatGPT that I know it was totally wrong, and I'm like, why am I spending the time to argue with an AI tool? What? It's just basic free training here that nobody pays me for.
But you're being entertained as you're trying to explain yourself. There's a
Yeah.
net there.
It's entertaining, it's frustrating, it's a whole emotional roller coaster essentially. Yeah.
What scares me is all these people that I keep reading reports about. They're using ChatGPT as a therapist.
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
it's going to give you the answer that you want it to give you. That's not therapy. That's like
Yeah.
talking to yourself.
Yep. Well, we are, for most of us, we're about out of time. And Julie's got another half an hour here that she's got to make up for being late. Uh,
It's for
but
those who were delinquent. I'm here to tell you about how to write those letters to.
no, thanks to everybody for being here today. I think that does it for today. And back next week to talk about whatever happens then. See you all then.
Well,
See you later.